Prosecutors have charged a Milwaukee man after a pregnant woman was found dead inside of her burning home. Firefighters found Gladys Johnson dead inside of her house near 26th and Hadley last Monday. Prosecutors charged Cameron Washington with arson and recklessly endangering safety.
January 5th, 11:30 at night. Michelle Johnson smells smoke in her house. She goes to check on her daughter Gladys, but when she gets to that bedroom door, he's blocking it, won't let her in. And girl, what happens next? It's the kind of nightmare that changes a family forever. When the clock strikes midnight, the truth comes out. I'm 12 a.m. crime, and every single day I bring you real cases of domestic violence that turn deadly. The stories the system tried to bury, the victims who deserve justice. If you're about that raw, unfiltered truth, hit subscribe. New case drops every day at midnight. Don't sleep on justice. This is 12 a.m. crime. Gladys Johnson-Ball was 22 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. A beautiful 3-year-old daughter, 5 months pregnant with her second child, and she was living at home with her family in Milwaukee, near 26th and Locust. Now, living with family. That's something a lot of us know about. Multi-generational households, everybody under one roof trying to make it work. Gladys had her mama Michelle, her sisters, and her boyfriend Cameron Washington, all in that house together. Cameron was 21. He and Gladys had been together for a while, long enough to have that 3-year-old baby girl, long enough that he moved into the family home. And on paper, it probably looked like a young couple, trying to build something. 2 kids, staying with family to save money, working toward a future. But here's the thing about living in close quarters with family. Somebody always sees what's really going on. Somebody always knows when things ain't right. And in that house on 26th Street, things were about to go very, very wrong. January 5th starts like any other day. Gladys is upstairs in her bedroom. Cameron's with her. And according to what Michelle would later tell investigators, they'd been in that room all day long. All day. She hadn't heard from her daughter, hadn't seen her come out. Nothing. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when somebody locks themselves in a room all day, that's already a red flag. Especially when you're living in your mama house. Especially when you got a 3-year-old who needs attention. Where was that baby during all this? What was happening behind that closed door? Michelle didn't know, but she was about to find out in the worst way possible. It's 11:30 at night. Michelle is moving through the house, and she smells it. Smoke. Every mother knows that feeling, that instant panic when something's wrong in your house. She goes straight to Gladys's bedroom, her daughter's room, the room where Gladys and Cameron have been all day. She gets to that door and tries to go in. Cameron blocks it. Let me say that again. Cameron Washington physically blocks the door, won't let Michelle Johnson into her own daughter's room, in her own house. Michelle's trying to get past him, trying to check on Gladys, and this man is standing there like, no, you got to get in here, blocking her way. Then Michelle turns around. And that's when Cameron pulls out a gun, points it straight at Michelle's other daughter, Gladys's sister, just standing there in the hallway. And now there's a gun in her face. And then Cameron runs, just takes off out of that house. Michelle doesn't have time to process what just happened. She forces her way into that bedroom. And what she sees, there's fire. Flames in her daughter's room. Michelle starts putting it out, fighting those flames with everything she has. And then she sees Gladys, her baby girl, laying there on the floor. Michelle pulls Gladys away from the fire, drags her daughter's body out of those flames. But Gladys isn't moving, isn't responding, isn't breathing. Michelle would later tell the news, and I'm keeping her words exact.
I found her and I didn't want her to burn up, and God had my back. He had my back, but he still took her and her baby, but she's in heaven with my mom. And if she's watching down on me, but now I got to stand up for her baby. I have to raise my child with my other daughters.
You can hear the trauma in those words. A mother who just pulled her daughter from a fire, trying to make sense of what happened, trying to speak through the shock. By the time first responders get there, it's too late. Gladys Johnson-Ball is pronounced dead at the scene. 22 years old, 5 months pregnant, gone. But here's where this gets even more devastating. When investigators examine Gladys's body, they find bruises. Bruises all over her. Blood coming from her nose. Blood coming from her mouth. This wasn't just a fire. Something happened to Gladys before those flames ever started. And prosecutors? They would later stand up in court and say something chilling. Our theory of the case is that the victim who died was dead in the house for at least several hours, and the fire was set in order to cover it up. Several hours, which means while Michelle was downstairs, while the family was going about their evening, Gladys might have already been dead in that room. And Cameron, he was just waiting for the right moment to set that fire and run. Police and fire departments respond together. They're looking at a house fire on the second floor. They're looking at a young woman dead in that bedroom. They're looking at a scene that doesn't add up. When they clear the house, they find Gladys laying unconscious in that burning bedroom. They get her out, but she's already gone. The medical examiner would later rule her death a homicide. Not an accident, not a tragedy, a homicide. Investigators start talking to the family. Michelle tells them everything. How Cameron and Gladys were in that room all day. How he wouldn't let anyone inside. How he pointed that gun at her daughter. How the fire started right after he ran. They're putting together a timeline. They're looking at the physical evidence. And girl, the evidence is speaking loud. Gladys has injuries that happened before the fire. The bruises, the blood from her nose and mouth. These are signs of assault, signs of violence, signs that somebody hurt this young woman before they ever lit a match. And then there's the question nobody wants to ask, but everybody's thinking, where was that 3-year-old during all of this? Authorities believe the couple's daughter may have witnessed what happened. A baby, 3 years old, possibly watching her father hurt her mother, possibly in that room when everything went down. That child is going to carry this for the rest of her life. Moving on to Cameron, police put out a call. They're looking for a 21-year-old black male, armed and dangerous, fled from a house fire where a woman was found dead. And y'all? They find him in less than 30 minutes. Less than 30 minutes after that 911 call, Cameron Washington is in custody. No car chase, no standoff. They take him without incident. And when they search him, he's got a lighter in his pocket. A lighter. On him. After fleeing a house fire. After his girlfriend was found dead in flames. Make it make sense. So now we've got Cameron Washington in custody. We've got a dead woman with injuries before the fire. We've got a lighter in his pocket. We've got a mother who watched him block that door and point a gun at her daughter. The pieces are coming together, and they're painting a picture that's hard to look at. Investigators are working 2 angles here. You've got the fire department looking at arson. You've got homicide detectives looking at a murder. And both of them, they're looking at the same man. The criminal complaint starts to lay it all out. Cameron Washington lived in that house with Gladys and her family. This wasn't some stranger breaking in. This wasn't some random act of violence. This was her boyfriend, the father of her child, the man she was building a life with, the man who was about to be a father again in 4 months. And according to what investigators pieced together, He spent that entire day in that room with her. The family didn't see Gladys come out, didn't hear her voice. Just Cameron in that bedroom, door closed all day long. Then that night comes the smoke, the blocked door, the gun, the fire, the escape. But here's what gets me, and I want you all to really sit with this. Michelle told investigators that moments after Cameron ran out of that house, that's when the fire started. Moments. Like he was waiting for his chance to light it up and go. Like he had it planned. Like he knew exactly what he was doing. And that 3-year-old baby, their daughter, investigators believe she may have witnessed this. A child, 3 years old, possibly watching her father kill her mother. Possibly in that room when the violence happened. Possibly seeing things no child should ever see. That baby lost her mother that night, and she's going to grow up knowing what her father did. How do you explain that to a 3-year-old? How do you tell a child that the person who was supposed to protect them, love them, be there for them, that person took away the other person who loved them most?
Some new details on the death of 22-year-old Gladys Johnson-Ball, the pregnant woman found dead after a fire last week, which investigators are calling arson. The 21-year-old man charged in connection to the case was in court earlier today. Fox 6's Andrew Amuzu with the latest now.
Dana Wisconsin versus Cameron Washington.
Sunday morning, 21-year-old Cameron Washington appeared at the Milwaukee County Courthouse. He faces 6 felony charges, including first-degree recklessly endangering safety and arson. The charges connected to the death of 22-year-old Gladys Johnson-Ball. Family told investigators she's the mother of his 3-year-old daughter.
Why would you take her life like that, and you knowing she was having a baby by you?
And was pregnant with another child when she was found dead the night of January 5th. According to the criminal complaint, Washington lived with Johnson and her family near 26th and Locust. Police were called to the house for reports of someone with a weapon. Once they arrived, police say they saw a fire on the 2nd floor. While clearing the house, they found Johnson laying unconscious in a bedroom that was on fire. They got her out, but she was pronounced dead on scene. Investigators noted Johnson had bruises all over her body and blood coming from her nose and mouth. The complaint says Johnson's mother told police Washington and Johnson were in the bedroom all day, and she hadn't heard from her daughter. She told investigators Washington wouldn't let family inside the room, and he pointed a gun at them.
He was blocking the door like, no, you gotta get in here. I turned around, that's when he pointed the gun at my daughter Kayla.
She said moments later the fire started in the bedroom and Washington ran away. He was later arrested and found with a lighter in his pocket.
Ultimately, this is extremely dangerous and deliberate behavior.
In the courtroom, Washington's bond was set at $100,000 and he faces more than 50 years in prison if convicted on all charges. Court Commissioner Maria Dorsey says that Washington has not yet been charged of a homicide because the medical examiner's report was not ready by the time charges were filed. Washington's next court appearance will be on January 20th. Reporting in Milwaukee, Andrew Amuzu, Fox 6 News.
Cameron Washington was arrested and taken into custody without incident. No resistance, no fight. He was caught, and that was that. But charging him? That's where things get complicated in the legal system. On Sunday morning, just days after Gladys died, Cameron appears at the Milwaukee County Courthouse. He's facing 6 felony charges. But here's what's interesting. There's no homicide charge. Not yet. Let me break down what he is charged with. First-degree recklessly endangering safety and arson. 6 felonies total. And if convicted on all of them, he's looking at more than 50 years in prison. But people are asking, why no murder charge? Why no homicide charge if Gladys is dead and he's the one accused of killing her? The answer comes from Court Commissioner Maria Dorsey in that courtroom. She explains that homicide charges haven't been filed yet because the medical examiner's report wasn't complete at the time of charging. They need that official autopsy. They need that official cause of death. They need every detail documented before they can charge him with taking Gladys's life. But make no mistake, prosecutors are not playing around. One of them stands up in that courtroom and says this, and I'm keeping it word for word. Ultimately, this is extremely dangerous and deliberate behavior. Dangerous and deliberate. Not an accident, not a moment of passion. Dangerous and deliberate behavior. Then they lay out their theory. And this is the part that should make everybody's skin crawl. The prosecutor says, "Our theory of the case is that the victim who died was dead in the house for at least several hours, and the fire was set in order to cover it up." Several hours. Which means Cameron might have killed Gladys early that day, might have spent hours in that room with her body, might have waited until nighttime, until the house was quiet, until he thought he could set a fire and make it look like an accident. But Michelle ruined that plan. Michelle smelled that smoke. Michelle fought her way into that room. Michelle pulled her daughter out of those flames. And because of that, because a mother refused to let her baby burn, the truth came out. The judge sets Cameron's bond at $100,000. $100,000 to potentially walk out while awaiting trial. For a man accused of beating his pregnant girlfriend, setting her on fire, pointing a gun at her family, and running. His next court appearance is scheduled for January 20th. But the story doesn't end there. Gladys Johnson-Ball was 22 years old. She was a daughter, a mother, a sister. She was 5 months pregnant, glowing with life, planning for her second baby. She lived in a house full of family who loved her, and she still ended up dead on her bedroom floor, surrounded by flames, covered in bruises. Her story is not unique. Her story is one that plays out over and over in our community. Young Black women losing their lives to domestic violence, families destroyed, children left motherless. And we keep saying we're going to do better, keep saying we're going to protect our women, keep saying we're going to recognize the signs and intervene. But Gladys is gone. And she won't be the last. So what do we do with this story? We remember her name. We honor her life. We look at our own relationships, our own families, our own communities, and we ask, who needs help? Who's isolated? Who's in danger? And then we act. We speak up. We intervene. We offer safety and resources and love, because the next Gladys might be your sister, your daughter, your friend, your neighbor, and maybe, just maybe, if we pay attention, if we care enough, if we act fast enough, the next one survives. Michelle Johnson tried to save her daughter. She smelled that smoke, and she ran toward the danger. She fought through Cameron blocking her way. She pulled Gladys from those flames. She did everything a mother could do. Now it's on us to do everything we can do, to speak up about domestic violence, to support survivors, to teach our sons that violence is never the answer, to teach our daughters that they deserve safety and respect and love that doesn't hurt. Gladys deserved that love. She deserved to raise her babies. She deserved to grow old. She deserved to live. Rest in peace, Gladys Johnson-Ball. Your story matters. Your life mattered. And your memory will not be forgotten.